And welcome to the SHR Media news presentation. Tonight we're going to be discussing the Kamala Harris interview with Bret Baier on Fox News. And there is a lot to pick from. We're going to try to keep this under an hour. However, I make no promises. Chat will be open just in case somebody wants to chime in. I also have chat going on my X. So if you're on X, I'll be able to monitor you through chat there. And wow, jumped up to 6 already. So say hi in chat if you're in chat. I really appreciate it. With me, part of the SHR team, we're going to start with age before beauty.
Thanks.
BZ joins us this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, BZ.
Good evening.
How are you, sir?
Always great to be here. The first time I've been here, so thank you.
Well, this is the SHR News. I haven't brought you on Edge of Liberty yet, so we'll get there.
Well, that's
also coming with us is the Reaver of Common Sense himself, Jersey Joe. Thank you so much, Joe.
No problem. I was raised in a middle-class home.
Thank you.
I am glad Trump's campaigning.
I understand. Thank you, Madam Vice President. So we're going to jump right in, and we've been fortunate enough to get this from Digital Beacon KLRN. So this is the feed that they had. It does start in almost immediately after she's asked about immigration, so it'll kick off right away. And I will be, and anyone wants to yell stop, I guess is a better way of putting it. You just yell it, and I be it. And here we go.
A topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right now,
just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Bret, let's just get to the point. Okay.
So the question was, how many illegal immigrants do you think has come into the country? And she wants to get to the point.
Yeah, let's just get to the point. My point.
Let's just get to the point, please. Please, let's just get to the point. I would love it if we could just get to the point. There we go. I'd rather have you guys on the side there where we can see you. So it starts off rough.
The point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
it's a rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number.
Was she beginning to answer, boys? I mean, let's be honest. Was she?
Beginning to answer like I was beginning my modeling career.
Yeah. It's the strangest thing because she says, I was just going to answer, but she wasn't.
No.
BZ?
It's an avoidance. See, going here in the first place with Bret Baier, I think she thought she was going to get the standard Mark 1 Model 1 Bret Baier response to Fox News declaring Joe Biden a winner, a victor, a full hour before he truly was. That's the Bret Baier I think she was expecting here.
Yeah, and I think what she got is the Bret Baier who honestly is probably looking for a little bit of redemption with conservatives. Everybody hates Bret Baier, and here's why. Let me rephrase that. A lot of conservatives hate Bret Baier, and here's why. Bret Baier is, I know, I don't care what his policies are. By and large, as a news guy, he has a tendency to be pretty dry and down the middle. But he doesn't ever really hit hard when he's supposed to, is the usual complaint about him.
No, and he doesn't rephrase questions like most.
What was that?
He doesn't hit rephrase questions. Like somebody will provide an answer, and then he'll let the answer go. You got to go back with another question and continue to hammer people.
Yeah.
I think also everybody hitting him on social media going, oh, this is going to be a softball. You're going to give the answers.
Yeah.
Well, I think that helped along a little bit.
And admittedly, a lot of people are still mad about the Arizona call, which he doesn't make. That's the other thing, too. I'll defend Bret to this point. He's not the one making the call for the states. It's all of their little nerds behind the scenes that make the calls. He just presents it. So, I mean, I know why people don't like him. I'm just saying that, if you go back and you watch some of his interviews, he's not as bad as some people say. He's just not necessarily in the bag for one side, and I think that aggravates people.
I don't trust Fox at all anymore.
No,
I haven't for a while.
Yeah,
and he works for Fox, and I was expecting a softball interview.
Yeah, I will give you that Fox obviously is Fox, and that they're a problem in themselves as of late. But let's continue.
Number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath,
ridiculous,
was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Okay, so let's talk. Yeah, we're all pausing. I know we all have something to say right now. Joe, I'll let you go first.
Mine's going to be quick and easy. I'm going to replay that when I go to sleep tonight, because that's going to put me to sleep in about 5 seconds.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, but there's no substance to it.
No, there isn't.
It's
exactly. So boring. It's going to put me to sleep.
Well, but here's the thing. This is her trying to remain stoic and presidential. That was her approach at the beginning. BZ?
No bill. What bill? What was in the bill? What bill? Name the bill. Be specific. Also, be prepared for a pivot. He presses just a little bit. I was really surprised and simultaneously pleased by Bret and his performance tonight. But just wait. There's more. She will get pressed on this, and she will immediately, you'll hear the word pivot. She will pivot.
And here's the thing. The bill she's talking about, the one that they presented as the one that came up, 2 years ago, that, Trump said to shoot down. Yes, but conservatives are going to shoot it down anyhow. Why? Because it added Border Patrol agents, sure, and it did. But the problem is it wasn't closing the border. It was just adding Border Patrol agents who, at that time, people forget, you had air marshals, every other federal law enforcement agency and non-law enforcement agencies were being brought in to process paperwork from all over the country, suspending their day-to-day jobs.
And it also gave a pathway to citizenship for.
Yeah, but that's a totally different part of the argument. I am talking about securing the border first, because that's what this whole.
Well, I'm talking
about right now. Yeah, but that was my point. Is even if they pass that bill, before you even talk about we all know we don't agree with that. Before you even get to that point, ground level one is all of those Border Patrol agents. They would have had to go through background checks. They would have had to go through field training. You're looking at them getting on the line a year later, and all they would have been doing is paperwork, because there was nothing else in that bill to secure the border for the most part. BZ, anything before we go?
No, it's true. She didn't name the bill, and you're absolutely right. It was a misleading bill, as most from the Democrats are. Then they fall back frequently, as they are wont to do, on the title.
Yep. Yes.
Feeling good for kittens bill.
Yeah. And then, Joe, you're right. Everything past that was garbage in that bill. Yeah. And just so you know, I wasn't I wasn't saying it wasn't important, but what she was talking about specifically is, that bill was to secure the border. No, it wasn't. It had nothing to do with securing the border. It had to do with flooding more paperwork pushes, and then, like you said, the path to citizenship.
And that's kind of part of where it goes for me is, you give a pathway, and what's that going to do? Invite more people to come.
Oh, it certainly doesn't stop it.
Yeah.
But let's continue.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021. It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the. Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish.
You had the White House and the House and the Senate,
and they didn't bring up that bill. I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
You're saying nothing.
Yes.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem.
Stop. This was not a priority. Everybody knows that. This was a political football. And here's the thing. They set themselves up to only be the victor here because either the conservatives and Republicans jumped on board and jammed the bill through, and then you have the pathway to citizenship, or B, they get to say you didn't pass the bill forever and ever and ever. Because if it was a priority, if securing the border was a true priority, they would have passed all of this before removing the 90 executive orders that they did day one that undid everything Trump had in place that had the numbers low at the border. This would have done, that would have happened after they passed the bill. Would you rescind all of that? And if you passed an actual immigration border bill, one that actually secures the border, you wouldn't need all those executive actions would automatically undo themselves upon signature of that law because it would have all of those things in there that would be now law. Sorry. Didn't want to rant.
And from day one, then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points.
I got a stupid
That's
question.
the work we did.
Yo.
I wonder how many TVs got broken tonight from people throwing stuff at it.
And we worked.
Because that was a straight out lie.
This whole thing was a lie.
Right, but I mean, that is just glaring.
It's in your face. That's the problem. BZ?
Well, the Border Act wouldn't have secured the border. It had a bunch of weaknesses. It
know.
didn't provide a solution to the most serious problem, which is that Biden already released so many asylum seekers, air quotes, into the country that the asylum system is essentially broken from the very get-go.
It's no longer asylum.
Yeah. It gives authority to shut down the border, which wouldn't kick in until, then they went to some numbers like 4,000 and 5,000 today, but it doesn't do a thing unless the 7-day average is above $5,000 a day. So what that means is the Biden-Harris regime could catch and release up to 5,000 inadmissible migrants every day, 2 million a year, right off the bat in that bill. That's just to start.
No, that's just the beginning. You're right.
What was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol.
Sorry, 1,500. I said earlier it was 3,000, I think. 1,500, which is even less.
Yeah, half.
And what's absolutely astounding to me, the total amount of employees for all of DHS, Border, ICE, and what's the other one? Customs is 68. I think it's 68,000, but that includes administrative personnel, support personnel, all that other stuff. How many active Border Patrol agents there are? Does anyone have a guess?
There were about 13,000. I don't know how many there are now.
Joe?
No clue.
20,000.
Oh,
So,
okay.
well, it's 19 and change. And that was 2022. I don't know what it is this year. That was the latest that I could find. Now, adding 1,500 to that would seem like a significant increase if they were actually going to do border enforcement.
It's a drop of urine. One drop.
But so the point is, if they were going to throw 1,500 extra on, which isn't a whole lot, it's only what? What's the percentage on that? 1,500. I'm going to be doing math and I shouldn't be. Am I wrong? So what's 1 to 20%? It's 1%, 1.5%, because that's roughly 20,000.
Essentially meaningless. Here's also what they didn't tell you about the bill. Is in that bill, it said 1,400 immigrants would have to go through ports of entry.
Yes.
Okay. How many immigrants are lining up at ports of entry instead of storming everywhere else besides everyone else?
And a lot of them were because of the Border One app or the One Border app or whatever the hell it's called. But the other thing that they were doing is because they were pre-checked for asylum before they come in, and they know they were releasing them on the immigration probation or parole, and they weren't doing any follow-up for it. And there was no real way to validate them other than the app and a quick in and out. So even if they did come through the ports of entry, they weren't actually still being documented and enforced per se in the way that they should be. They were, as Sean said in the chat, they were border greeters and sandwich makers, and that's all that they were doing it for the ones in the port that came through the port of entry.
Well, the other thing is that there are, as you well know, because you know about judges in this situation.
Oh, yeah.
Judges are already at the last figures I have a couple of months ago, 3.5 million actual lined up, signed on the dotted line behind. 3 million people behind.
And do you know how many immigration judges there are?
You can tell me.
Anyone want to throw a guess out?
7.
No.
BZ, you're
Damn
closer than you think. It is 600. We have 600 nationwide immigration judges that have to hear all of these cases for the ones that show up.
Yeah, lovely.
So I don't know what the math is. How many times 600 goes into 3 million? You know what? I'm going to do the math. And this may not, I just want to be able to put this out because 3 million.
Okay, as you're doing that, let me read from an article that I found.
Divided by 600.
Isn't going to help. Oh, you got it now?
Yep.
Okay.
5,000 cases each. 5,000 cases each. And a little inside baseball, because I know somebody who works in the federal judicial system.
That's my point.
They're having a hard time getting judges for it. And a lot of it is because they know day one, you're already 4,000 cases behind, 3,000 cases just before you even start.
Right.
Go ahead, BZ.
They figured, congressional research figured in 2023, back then, before the even greater explosion now, that it would take, if you had 1,300 judges, it'd take them 10 years to clear that backlog at that time, which is only 1.9 million. The backlog is now 55 to 75% bigger.
Yep. And you know it's even more amazing? What does this do to the people who are doing it the right way?
Screws them over.
Yeah, hugely. Bigly. The legal immigrants. All right, we're only 3 minutes in. We're going to keep going.
Agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
If you were playing the drinking game, now would be the time.
Trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
6 Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it.
6 Democrats. You notice how she didn't even flinch at that?
Because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a
Republicans
problem.
voted for it? What was it, 1 or 2? But yet 6 Democrats voted against it. That's more bipartisan than that.
I want to say, Joe, I want to say you're off. I want to say because Kinzinger and Cheney, I think, were still in there. So it may have been 10.
I don't think
She's talking like Trump owns the Republican Party.
It's the weirdest thing.
He does not.
And I get that he is the de facto leader of the Republican Party, former president, and clearly the nominee, right? However, him saying, I don't think this bill is a good idea or they should kill it is not the same. She does that on purpose. She tries to use certain language to make it seem like he pulls every string when he clearly, as you said, does not. He told him to. So what?
Yeah.
And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you.
but actually
Not playing political games.
Yeah.
That's all this woman has done
The
from start
very
to stop.
definition.
When
of-
she is calling and putting ads out with the mayor of Tampa during a goddamn hurricane to talk, and put it on her campaign, she is politicizing everything.
Well, and she's always politicized everything.
I didn't mean to jump off this kind of conversation, but this giving an example of just some of the politicizing that she does. And
You were
Democrats
there.
have been politicizing the immigration for decades.
Right.
Otherwise, they would have done something about it. They screwed over Reagan in the 80s. They made promises left, right, and center that they've never kept.
Well, and I agree with you that it's all politicized. The border has been politicized for years because nobody wants to do the actual hard work that will take, including Republicans, that it will take to close that border, because for the first couple years, it's going to be an albatross around the neck, because they're going to portray it as this evil, horrible act that the way they're treating these poor immigrants. And they're going to probably get an election or two out of it if conservatives passed one
Not
tomorrow.
even what are they going to campaign on after that? They fix it.
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah. It's like abortion.
Yeah.
It's like abortion. It's a useful football. That's all it is, a useful political football.
focused on fixing
6
it.
Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the
And look who said no.
Yeah. Bernie.
Bernie,
Even
Cory Booker, Markey, those are 3 heavily progressive. I'm not as familiar with Representative Butler, but Padilla is progressive as hell.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And I think Sinema voted against it. They say she's a Democrat. She's an independent. I think she voted against it because the border bill is a hot issue down there, obviously in Arizona.
country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the 6 Democrats. But more importantly, back to the original premise, Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably
Look at the look
would
on her
not have been.
face. Hold on a second. I don't know if I can clean that up. There it is. Look at that look.
That's
As soon as he
forlorn.
said, yeah, look at
Poor
everything about her body language right there. Her shoulders are down, right? And she's, but look at the look on her face. He's literally saying the names of the women that she does not want to hear in this conversation.
I wonder
Against me.
if she would have answered a couple of those questions before that, if this question would have came out, because it seems like he wasn't getting an answer, so followed up with this to kind of.
I get what you're saying. I don't know. The way he's done this whole interview, I think it would have, to be honest. I really think that it would have come out just the same.
Vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation.
No smart ass.
This is well before Donald Trump got
Yeah.
involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Bret,
those
I think it's
families
really, I think,
an apology?
let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that.
Do I smell
There's
a pivot?
no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced
But
for a loss that should not have occurred.
If
So
your administration did its
that
job.
is true. It is also true
Left face.
that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents.
No.
no.
And
lie.
First of all, the federal, what's FLETC now? 6 months? I think FLETC in itself is 6 months. How long does it take to do a law enforcement background on a federal level? Almost a year.
Almost a year, sometimes longer.
Yep. So you would not have, you don't get a year and 6 months out of 9 months. So they wouldn't even be on the ground, and they wouldn't even be doing their field training yet. But as I said before, they would just be ushered in to do paperwork.
The border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together
Madam Vice President.
to ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Brett.
Madam Vice
Well, here's
President,
my
it was a
question,
policy.
Yo,
All right. This Congress didn't act.
Mhm.
And we always hear other Democrats, if the Congress doesn't act, we'll do executive orders.
right.
We all know executive orders would have worked. So what she's telling me is that she's and Biden are such failures that they couldn't.
Well, they had executive orders.
Huh?
They had executive orders.
I know,
They
they
undid 90 of
them.
them. Yeah.
And it also would have been very easy to correct the situation by writing a. They knew there was an issue and they ignored it.
Yep. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, if they did what they did with the insulin deal where they killed one Trump order, and then immediately 3 months later brought them all back and called it a Biden order, it would have been better off for them. I know they've done a lot of that stuff in the last few months because they saw how poorly the border was polling with Americans. What's it? 75% of Americans said the border needed to be shut. They know it was terrible. That's why suddenly, what was it? April, May, that they started actually closing the border. And that's because Biden was so far underwater with it that he put some executive orders back in place.
2/3 of Americans polled want all the illegals gone.
Yeah, 2/3.
Decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what
I
I'm
will
saying.
tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I'm so sorry for her loss.
But no apology.
Sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not.
Uh-oh.
Something died. Mine says waiting for the host to rejoin.
He might have got bumped. So,
Well, let me point out one thing.
go ahead.
At the very beginning, when Bret Baier said, and I'm pseudo shocked at what Bret Baier did. I'm very surprised, yet pleased. But at the beginning, do you remember? Because I said, stand by. Here come the actions, the various pivot kind of things. But Bret Baier said something similar to, but just a number to her. Do you think about, in terms of the illegal immigrants, invaders here, I like to call them invaders. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million? Well, she says, well, let's just get to the point of it. The point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired. I speak leftist. What that means is, I don't want to talk about that.
Sorry about that, folks. I don't know what
That's
happened
okay.
there.
Yeah,
Our job.
we had it.
I figured.
We have the SHR
We're
job.
professionals.
I figured I'm going to pick it up.
He's professional.
Well, somebody is. I'm going to pick it up when the mother was speaking, only because I think that's super important for everybody to hear. I'm going to do this and minimize it, and this time hopefully I will be here when you guys get back.
Let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
All right.
That's the early.
Bringing you guys back now. So it's so frustrating.
To her, what they have been doing to Trump. You trot out the people that have been directly affected by this.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Two should and can play at that game.
Well, and it's, and it's, I don't even look at it as a game.
No, I misspoke. Not a game, but two can play at these tactics. This is a tactic.
Yeah, it's just, it's so sad. And it's, I hate the fact, and you're right, it is a tactic. I hate the fact that it's a tactic, right? That woman, that mother, that suffering mother should not have to endure that. And they allowed it to happen.
But see, what I want to bring up very quickly, and I know you got to catch up, is why don't we go off the standard Democrat Model 1 axiom, which is if we can save, with guns, if we can save only one life by prescribing, if we can save only one life by shutting down the border, ... But you never hear that.
Mm-hmm. It's, yeah. And it's sad to me that, I'm going to hide this part. It's sad to me that they, just as a parent alone, to have to sit there and talk in front of a room full of people. And then you have the Democrats getting mad at the conservatives for bringing her. Because if you remember, that happened. They were all terrible, frustrating. I know we do.
How can you do the same thing we've done?
Days.
Exactly.
So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss.
Okay, 2 points.
I'm so sorry.
Did you see her? Stop.
Sincerely.
Just for a second. Did you see her? No. I'm so sorry for their loss. Head shake. Anybody that reads Body Dynamics and the fact that, again, as I mentioned with Dave, whatever the guy's name was from ABC, Drymouth.
Yes.
And yes. Look at the head shake. Not nodding. Head shake.
Yeah, it's just it's sad. Go on.
No apology at all. Nothing.
Nothing.
I wish.
Well, and she said
could have stopped this. I wish this never happened. Just something. It hurts. I know.
Well, yeah, and it's this is really terrible. It is. Yes, that's an easy one to decipher. This is terrible. This is a tragedy. Yes, this is a tragedy. But your apology is not throated enough to convince anybody.
A crumb.
Yep. Moving on.
But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well. Brett, in all fairness, I told you, I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration, even before. Let's all be honest about that.
Yep,
I have no pride.
It was broken when I got here. Okay. What'd you do to fix it?
And you're too stupid to fix it?
Right.
On the first thing, day one, remain in Mexico, gone.
Yeah. It was broken when I got here is the absolute worst explanation in this situation. Now, when you're lobbying to get a bill done, or if you're lobbying to actually try to close the border actively, to say, hey, this was jacked up when I got here, I don't want this to be jacked up when I leave here, is entirely different. Right? Because at least then you're pointing in a direction. You're trying to do something. And that's not what is happening here.
She gets her words from weaselwords.com. Guaranteed.
And nowhere yet has she talked about what she'll do to fix it. The only thing she has pointed out is Trump.
Joe.
Yep.
Trump.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
She has not said what she'll do.
No, and she's not going to.
No, because she has nothing.
Well, yeah. She's got literally nothing. Moving on.
Didn't she say that?
And saying that this is a perfect immigration system, I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents.
Finally.
And they will tell you, and I'm sure I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to prosecute.
And how many times has she been to the border?
In year 4.
This is what, second time?
Once.
That was it.
Once.
Well, she went down. She went one other time.
She went to Texas, but she did not go to the border. She was in El Paso, I think, but she did not go to the actual border.
The proximity alert didn't even go off.
Right.
Need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that that's going to get fixed, Brett.
Well,
that's how the system works.
Yes, that is technically what we need. The flip side to that is you have powers you were not using until it was politically lousy for you.
And then let's get it right. They broke it.
Yeah.
Because it may not have been perfect, but it was doing a hell of a lot better.
Hell of a lot better.
Congress, what Congress? How about EOs? First day one.
Well, and right, they undid them. They were EOs in place. They undid them. I mean, it's the craziest thing to me that they're going to act like that Joe didn't undo 90 EOs, executive orders, day one.
Now she's wailing for Congress. I love Congress.
Right. I say it all the time. You're right. Congress does need to friggin' fix this. I agree. That does not mean that there weren't other things going on that they could have done.
Bingo.
Should have done.
There were
That's how the
90
system
plus
works.
executive orders that were rescinded in the first days.
There
Many
you
of
go.
those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talk to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it. They want support. They want support, and that's what that border security bill would have done.
No, it wouldn't have.
Hang
No.
on. So the border bill would have supported the border control or border, you know what I mean? But yet they backed the man that killed the bill. That doesn't make sense.
Well,
I mean, going by her logic.
By her logic. No, I agree. And the only reason they look, any other, I don't care what agency it is, when you say, hey, we're going to actually give you bodies this year instead of take some away, of course they're going to support that. And I know people don't want to hear that per se because it's like whatever right now, but it's true. Any agency you say, hey, we're going to up your numbers, that agency is going to be like, yeah, okay. At this point, when you are literally drowning, if you will, in illegal immigrants at the southern border, you will welcome whatever help you can get. And they were throwing a cookie at them and saying, oh, look how great this is for you now.
These guys down at the border, these men and women, they're working hard. They're working around the clock. I get it.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
Go ahead, BZ. I know you're waiting on this one.
Let me go back a little bit. There's a law, Trump versus Hawaii. So under the current law, if they feel so motivated, the president has all the authority that he needs to shut down the border. It came from that court case to suspend the covered aliens in the United States. An EO from day one that didn't occur means that everything from that point on was intentional because the power exists within the presidency. It was purposely, intentionally avoided.
Yep. Joe?
I was going to say something. I totally blanked on it. Go ahead.
Okay.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
Oh, that's what it was.
We are very clear, and I am very clear.
Yes.
You notice she never denied still supporting those ideas, just saying, I'll follow the law.
Yes.
Which
Well,
she
we get to that.
wish to have changed to her ideology.
Don't jump ahead. We got to wait for this.
As is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
So decriminalizing border crossings, like you said in 2019.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and I've not done that as vice president. I will not do that as president.
So these are evolutions that you've had.
But let's be very clear. I'm the only person who's running for president who has prosecuted.
Pivot.
I don't give a shit what you prosecute.
Yeah, it doesn't make any difference.
That has nothing. And by the way, if you ever look at her prosecutorial, so she says that, I prosecuted this cartel and that cartel. She didn't prosecute him. She was the AG while other people prosecuted them.
Yeah,
but I've heard her record.
In that she voted present.
Yeah, exactly. Her name was on the record. It's almost like Letitia James in New York saying she got Trump. She didn't get Trump.
Yeah.
Joe?
I was just saying, from what I've heard, her record
is garbage.
Yeah, she's lost more than anything. We know how she got the position.
Mm-hmm.
In San Francisco, she prosecuted 3,000 plus black males, only black males, for dope, period, end of statement.
Not even real dope, marijuana.
Yeah.
Which she's now advocating to legalize.
And she's also lost 1,400 cases that didn't even make it to prosecution because they were prepped so bad. And she got a bad employee review, but that's neither here nor there. Let's go.
Yeah, come on.
Transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa cartel to the Guadalajara cartel, to
Motel.
people who have trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career going after people who present a threat to the safety of the American people and cross our border with the intent of doing us harm and cross our border illegally. And I will do that work as vice president.
Okay, so let's just argue just for a minute. Let's just say she did all of those things that she just magically made up that she never did. What does that have to do with closing the border? That has nothing to do with closing the border. That has something to do with after you close the border and people sneak in. That is not still closing the border. Sorry.
It's okay.
Take that work quite seriously.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania, are inundated with commercials and ads. They just want it to stop because it's every commercial. But many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Who wants to go first? BZ. I know this is going to be a long one for you, so I'm going to do this.
Not necessarily so. I watched this originally on his show, and I picked up some things from this. As we review this and you play the video, I'm beginning to make a more active appreciation for Bret Baier. Now, we spoke earlier about how it is that he came here, but here he is today. To Bret Baier, I'm a little surprised. I'm a little shocked. I don't even know if I can say this. I'm a little proud. That grates to say it out of my mouth, the words coming out of my mouth about Bret Baier, but he was a little surprising, and she was taken aback. I think she was expecting 2020 Bret Baier.
I agree. Joe?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know I'm a blonde, and sometimes, I get things.
It happens.
Wasn't it back in the debate she denied that ever happened? That she ever said that?
I don't recall on that one, but you're probably right. She's denied everything and then rewritten her own history over and over
about supporting transgender sex change paid by taxpayers.
Yeah.
I don't think she was expecting any of this because I'm waiting for, and I know I'm jumping ahead. I'm waiting for the fireworks to start.
Moving on.
You could see her start.
Are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law. And it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with it's a public report that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign
Oh, well, I think it's counting down for us. You broke
is
it,
a
Joe.
little bit of like throwing stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries
you know what? You got to
happened
take
during
responsible for what happened in your
presidency.
administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in his presidency.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars?
Necessity basis
Can we get
to people.
What?
Her? What'd you do?
Like I said, I think it's real. He spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan.
Fear?
What fear?
If you had 2 minutes, I'd play the video that I played last night from Kamala Harris, which takes all of the things she's saying now and slams them upside her head.
Yep.
What fear?
Yeah, the fear. But this
fear
is
the truth of what she said.
But this is what's going to come out more and more through this interview is she pivoting fear. She has no stance herself. Her only defense is but Trump, but Trump, but Trump. Instead of joy, that should be her campaign slogan.
In this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote. And again, his policy was no different. Look at where we are, though.
They say
on plans for the American people, I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is about taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need. My plan
to do with trannies, nothing to do with trannies.
He allowed her, and he allowed her to say, it was okay. I know you have to say everything that you've memorized and get it out for the interview. This is your moment to get a couple of those things out, which a good interviewer does, right? You don't want your subject to shut down totally. So you have to give him a little bit sometimes. I will give him credit for that. I mean, Bret, I know you don't like his way usually, but Bret knows how to interview people. He knows how to talk to them.
Plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy.
Goldman Sachs. You mean
nothing to do with trannies? Nothing to do with trannies.
Okay. We're past that now. We're into the economy. The simple fact of the matter is, of course, Goldman Sachs is going to support something that makes them more money. That doesn't necessarily, they're going to say, this is going to make us more money. Okay. This has nothing to do with what it's going to do for taxpayers.
His would make them weaker,
Why do you
would
think more
ignite
people
inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as president of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future and a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country. My plan for the economy does exactly that. His plan would be, again, to give tax cuts to billionaires and the biggest corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
It's interesting.
So she just said, I don't have details. He has details, but I don't have details. What are the details? I'm not detailing the details, but I will detail Trump details.
She literally said, I know he's got this horrible plan. So she can't use he doesn't have a plan. When she says he's got a plan that's not going to work. And then when somebody says, well, what's your plan? She'll say, well, I have one.
Oh, and many of the plans I stole from Trump anyway. So
weird.
You said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I know.
And so that would be one change in terms of, but also I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So
I'm not Joe Biden, but I'm not Donald Trump. Let's see what her answer. She's had what?
I love I'm not going to do anything different, but I'm not Joe Biden.
Right.
You're not going to do anything different, but you're not Joe Biden. I'm not going to do anything different.
But she's had a week. She's had a week to think about that answer. Now let's see what she's come up with. Drinking water.
You're not Joe Biden. You're not Donald Trump. But nothing comes to mind that you would do differently.
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency.
Stop just for a
and
second.
Like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership.
Wow.
I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are...
Okay, stop for a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We're going to go top to the bottom. BZ, you go first.
You've spent 8 years there, Bint, which is twice as long as Donald Trump. He's not a politician. You are. What are the details? Let's hear them. This is the perfect time to regale your various detailed tales to all the people that are watching this show. You could grab an entirely brand new segment of potential voters just by grabbing them by the glottis, dragging them in and showing them the error of their ways. You provide no details.
Yep. It's absolutely astounding. Joe.
She was in office, she said, 8 years as senator, right?
Mm-hmm.
3.5 as vice president now.
11 and a half years.
How long was she the attorney general for California?
1 term, 4 years.
4 years, which is, how do you get that position?
A vote. No, she was voted, and she got money. She got money from DC.
Right. So her pretty much whole career has been as a politician.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, and before that, she's an elected assistant district attorney here in California. Yeah. No, this whole thing, she doesn't answer the question.
No.
She's had a week. A week.
Never.
Supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago.
The Republicans supporting her and not Republicans.
And others who can contribute to the decisions that I make about, for example, my plan for increasing the supply.
Yep. I got
is a non-answer, but better than hers. I don't have all the answers, but what I will do is surround myself with the best people that are going to have the answers to turn this country around. Or
you say, I already know some of the people that I'm looking at, and here's why. X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Here's the goals that I want to meet. Here are the things that we've already talked about, and I don't have every finite detail, but what I can tell you is I'm doing everything I can to have the finite details.
It's as the assistant chief, it was not my place to have every answer. It was my place to make sure I had the right people around me to get me the answers.
Bingo.
That's her job.
The Einstein answer, when asked, what's your phone number? Well, I don't know what my phone number is, but I know where to go to get it.
Yep. It's just, it was she had a week to come up with that, and she still blew it.
My life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership.
She's 60 years old, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
And she's 60 years old, and she's been entrenched in politics for 25 of them, because she started running
out of college.
No, longer. Yeah. She was ADA she got onto the assistant district attorney in Alameda out of law school. Then she ran.
Appointed her to any number of boards.
Well, hold on. I'm just going through her whole career. Then she ran for ADA because Willie Brown was the mayor in San Francisco, which for people who don't realize, the county of San Francisco and the city of San Francisco is the same exact thing.
Yep.
There's no difference. The only reason they have a county is nobody knows why. Is because they have to. No, I know, but San Francisco City could have their own jail. There's no reason for it other than the fact that somebody didn't want to give up power. So when she got elected she was then elected as ADA, and then she became district attorney of San Francisco. Then she ran for attorney general. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Like BZ said, she was appointed as a bureaucrat by politicians to work with politicians all the way through to the point that she ran for California AG. Her whole life has been politics.
For example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago.
I backed up
and
just
the
so we
business
could.
sector, and others who can contribute to the decisions that I make about, for example, my plan for increasing the supply of housing in America and bringing down the cost of housing, addressing the issue of small businesses, which is about working with the private sector to bring more capital and access to capital to our small business leaders, including my plan for a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and for small businesses, extending the tax deduction from $5,000 to $50,000.
We've heard a lot about those plans.
That was regurgitated, memorized hockey.
Yeah. Recent days, your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years. So what are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade in which we've been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that has been designed and implemented to divide our country.
How did he become? The question was her specifically. What are you doing to turn the page? What are you going to do differently? Pivot to Donald Trump.
And have Americans literally point fingers at each other. Rhetoric and
the finger pointing in this country started under Obama. That is 100% documented. Everybody knows.
Approach to leadership that suggests that the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down instead of what we all know. The strength of leadership is based on who you lift up. The strength of an American president, which is one who understands that the vast majority of us have more in common than what separates us. That is about turning a page on rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Brett.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
What's that?
And
you can actually, if you look really hard, you can see like she's already starting to get pissed. Her eyes are different. Just everything.
Donald Trump has been running for office.
Donald Trump.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. No, I don't.
Here it comes.
I will tell you that right there. I mean, you can tell.
Save me.
Yep. And now she's going to get pissed because now she's being pressed.
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
But you're
people
the
have
lever of
become,
power.
but listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff to the president, national security advisor, and his vice president, one, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being a
Vice President,
the American people. People are tired of that.
If that's the case.
You mean like the attacks on MAGA?
Yeah. Obfuscation, pivot. Obfuscation, pivot. Don't answer the question. Next.
Yes. For an interview about her, she spent more time. Trump is so deep in her head.
Oh, yeah.
It's not even funny.
It's always about Trump.
Yes.
Oh, it's not just her. Democrats in general. He lives in their head rent free.
It's amazing.
Why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
What?
I know, but
it's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a cakewalk.
So are they misguided, the 50%? Are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within.
Yes.
An enemy within.
Yes.
Talking about the American people.
Stop for just a second, can you? I'd like to remind everyone that this person right here,
there's nobody there.
That one, yeah, there's nobody to point to now, is the one who called young kids stupid.
Yep.
Do you remember the reference to the kids in the
18,
dorm?
what was it, 16 to 22 or something like that, or morons?
Them stupid. Just thought I'd point that out.
Joe?
Wasn't it Biden that called MAGA a danger, a threat to the United States?
Still does.
Threat
Yeah.
every day.
Democrats do it all the time. Oh, who the hell am I thinking?
But here's the
Extreme Jeffries is always out there.
MAG is a threat. MAG is a threat. MAG is a threat, he says. Yep. I agree with you, Joe.
Saying the deep state is a threat.
Right.
He's
which
not American people.
Which, I mean, to say that there are not powers that be that worked against the interest of the American people is, and she's going to bring up the whole Trump and the military thing this weekend, but was he kind of throwing that out there? Yeah. I mean, we could talk about posse comitatus or whatever, but I think his point was, and he'll clarify it someday, is I'm just going to throw everything I have at the people who are trying to undercut this country from the inside out. And there are.
Clearly.
Yep.
But how many times have they taken a statement of his and twisted it and misrepresented?
Oh, yeah. No, I agree.
Suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
And it happens so much that there is a committee for it now.
Bret, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
He was asked about that specific.
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and
I'm
respect to
that
you,
was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest.
He's not.
He's talked about.
When did he say going after people who are in peaceful protest? When?
Never.
He's never said that. They're the ones.
How many protests were going on during his
all the time
administration, and how many times did he send the military in?
Yep. And look at, he offered National Guard, which, you know, the governor has that authority to do so, but he offered extra federal protection in Portland, in Seattle. He offered federal officers to assist. He also offered for Minnesota, I believe.
About locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a
That's
democracy.
not what they're saying.
And
it's not a democracy.
No, that's exactly
President of the United States,
Clinton
in the United States of America, should be
Put him in
willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up.
It's not criticism. See, first of all, it's not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic. We all know that before everyone jumps on that train. I agree with you. I hate that they say it, but here we are. Second of all, he's not doing it to people who disagree with him. He wants people who have broken the law to be held accountable. That is a humongous difference.
But remember,
he's getting prosecuted because he didn't agree. Eric Adams is getting investigated and prosecuted because he didn't agree with the administration. Don't say it isn't happening, because it is. And I'm not saying that Eric Adams didn't do something wrong, but it never would have been investigated if he didn't jump down their throat about immigration.
Yep. Just remember, when Democrats are accusing somebody of something, look in the backyard, because that's exactly what they're doing.
Yep.
Exponentially.
Yep.
For doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes.
Mark Milley reports are, and I haven't confirmed this individually, but a lot of reports out there are saying that he is worried that he's going to be court-martialed and prosecuted if Trump gets back into office, which begs the question, for what? Nobody seems to answer that question.
For treason. For notifying, potentially for stating he would notify our enemies if he personally didn't agree with a presidential decision. That's not his decision or his place to make.
Well, and if you remember, he was the one, as we've seen in the DOD files that were released, he is the one who ignored Trump when he said that January 6th was going to have a lot of people there, and they all downplayed it. I wonder why.
Let me ask you this, Madam Vice President. You call Donald Trump. You call Donald Trump. He's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room. And he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
The reason this is important, and this is the point that she's trying to purposely, in a sinister fashion, avoid, is this. When did you know that Joe Biden was a vegetable, and why didn't you say anything about that? Well, it's not about Joe Biden. Yes, it is. It's about Joe Biden because it's all about you. When did you decide that you were going to continue deceiving the American public? And that reflects poorly on you because you were in the tank for him. And until it got to the point where it was so damn obvious that even the American media maggots couldn't avoid the fact that Joe Biden was truly a vegetable in that debate, only up until that point did you have any voice in terms of, well, I don't know. Up until that point. So when did you know that he was a vegetable? Because this reflects directly on you, Cammie Cackler.
Yep.
Joe?
And it goes to, can we trust her that she's not going to hide something that's very important to the nation, like a president in severe mental decline?
Yep.
What else would she lie to us about?
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly what he's getting at. And she don't want to hear it. So she's going to make an excuse that it's about Joe Biden. No, it's about you, you dumb idiot.
It's about you.
It is 100%. No, I agree. It's 100% about her. And the simple fact of the matter, and Joe, I think, nailed this correctly. Everybody knew, and there was essentially a president by committee who was running this country, and it wasn't Joe Biden. And not in the way that, oh, I have a whole bunch of advisors who helped me come to my decision. No, they were making the decisions, and he was signing his name.
Trump is on the ballot.
I understand.
Window.
You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
Pissed.
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out. Even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of.
Because this is all I'm seeing. And one of the things that drives me up a wall with, especially the Democrats right now, they see something that worked against them. So what do? The American people are so stupid, they won't notice that we're copying him.
Oh, yeah.
So Joe Biden went down the shitter mentally, and now they're trying to point the finger at Trump.
Yep.
Everything they're doing is, Republicans got us on this, so let's copy it.
Who took the cognitive test? Who refused?
Mm-hmm. Well, and more importantly, this is the part they can't point. They say he's unfit for office, yet he was in office for 4 years. And I don't recall. Do you guys recall getting into any wars for 4 years?
Nope.
Do you guys recall paying more money by the end of the Trump administration? No. Nope. Do you recall what did he do that was unhinged? That's it. They say he's unstable, but they can't give evidence of his instability other than the fact that he talks a lot. Trump talks a lot. He always has.
He said mean things on Twitter.
Exactly. That's exactly what this comes back to, is mean things.
Of the United States again, including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to
because they
choose another running mate. That is a fact. That is a fact.
Madam Vice President.
That is a fact.
2 more things. You were asked on 60 Minutes about the biggest threat
it's a lie right there. If you got to
the
say
world faces, that the U.S. faces.
That's like Biden saying after he says something, hey, true story.
Yeah. Or I'm so intelligent.
Yep.
This is what you said.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands. Okay. This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
Okay.
She can't even name the greatest enemy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the China. Everybody knows
China.
This isn't.
It would piss off the Chinese controllers.
Even the State Department says that it's China. Everybody knows it's China. It used to be Russia. It used to be the Soviet Union. It is now China. Is Iran a problem? Yes. Is a nuclear Iran a bigger threat than it is now? Absolutely. And I think they're nuclear now anyhow, but that's neither here nor there. If I see you, Joe, I promise I'll get to you. If Iran is the biggest threat that's going on right now, why are we not closing Iranian secret police stations in the country? Why is Iran not buying up all the farmland? Why is Iran not buying up land near military bases? Why is
Iran Zeppelins?
Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's not even close. And by the way, she had 9 days to fix this. 9. Go ahead, Joe.
Now, let's, for the sake of argument, say Iran is the number one enemy.
Iran is the number one enemy. Go ahead.
Iran is the number one enemy.
Who empowered them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. 100%, Joe. 100%. 100%.
The Democrats empowered them. With how many billions of dollars? I remember Obama trucking.
Well, and everything after that.
Then Biden releasing all those billions of dollars.
That's the big one there. And they were not enforcing the embargoes that were on them, and it allowed them to sell oil off the market to Russia and other places and make billions
of everything that Trump put against them.
and made billions. And she's going to allude to Trump pulling from the nuclear deal. Folks, the nuclear deal was garbage. There was no teeth in it for the UN weapon inspectors. They were not allowed in numerous times. There was no penalty for it. All it was a window dressing instead of dealing with the problem.
A unilateral giveaway.
And if Iran is the enemy, why are they limiting or trying to limit Israel's response to Iran?
Exactly. Yeah.
Why
No,
would you protect the number one enemy?
Everything you're saying is true. She's just not smart enough to deal with that.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said that. But you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the number one threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, and then several hours on each occasion that Iran posed a threat to Israel, I was there. Most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do, to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself, and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that is, and my commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
She didn't answer why she said Iran. She never answered the question. She started spouting how Iran is attacking Israel. Yes, that's true. She was in the Situation Room. Okay, maybe. Can't argue that. I don't have any evidence to argue that. She argues that, more recent attacks with the 100 cruise missiles or 200 cruise missiles that were fired from Iran that she was involved in. Okay, right. But that does not make them the biggest threat to America. She said, which, by the way, she's now locked herself in, and I know she's alluded to it before, she's locked herself into defending Israel, but this goes back to Joe's point. If you're all about Israel defending itself, why are you now threatening embargoes on them?
If that's how you treat your friends, I'd hate to see how you treat your enemies.
Well, we know because we see
enemies, the reverse.
We know how they treat the enemies because look at what they've done to Donald Trump with lawfare.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put Iran in check.
The estimates in billions.
It was during Donald Trump's administration that Iran regime that we had an American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches.
This is not the point.
Bull. I'm not.
And it's funny. Shit. And one thing that people forget, when Donald, the whole headaches thing came from the day after he was asked about it, and he was asked about the severity. And at the time, that was the information that they had. They hadn't been flown to Germany yet. They hadn't gotten MRIs yet. So that's BS, because that was an in the moment question, and he went with what he was told. Oh God.
Not to mention how Donald Trump has
all of this money
has treated and talked about America's military and military service people, calling them
not the question.
Suckers and losers.
And the suckers and loser things have been blown out of the water. We've talked about it 100 times. She absolutely 100% sidestepped the question.
I think there's only ever been one true statement out of this whole campaign. One truth. Everything has been a lie, has been fabricated. The only true statement that has ever come out of that woman's mouth for this campaign or her campaign headquarters is there was nothing in her head.
Yeah.
And I stand by what I've said before.
Yes.
No, that's what she said.
Oh.
I stand by what I've said before.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, she's just, the simple fact of the matter is she was asked why she said I ran. And now right now she's just vomiting all of her pre-memorized answers all over the floor in that interview room because she hasn't had a chance to get any of this out yet.
Hamas
has diminished
shit, this isn't going my way.
Right.
Right.
We're talking over each other. I apologize.
I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full
You've done all the
assessment of the
talking, lady.
facts, which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election, and the contrast is important.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering what should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a
And there
decision
are
that
critics
they
who
feel.
look at what the administration.
But she said, like, I should be allowed to talk. How much have you heard Bret Baier's voice in all this? To his credit, he's cut her off a few times. He's pushed back a few times, but he's let her talk. And this is why it's a disaster, is because she was allowed to talk. The only thing he didn't do was save her.
She said I ran. She didn't like that answer, especially when pressed by Bret Baier. Then, because she cannot think on her feet, she comes up with everything except a qualified and a quality response to, well, why did I choose Iran? Why did I choose Iran? It should be China or Russia. I chose Iran, and I can't justify it.
Yeah. No, 100% factual, Joe.
Well, she's sitting there saying, this interview is supposed to be, the interview is supposed to be about pretty much like a 75-25, I would say. 75% of you telling me why I should vote for you, what you're going to do, and maybe 25% of attacking your opponent.
Yeah.
But the majority of it should be, what are you going to do?
And he's given her every opportunity, and all she's done is thrown it back to Trump. And then she's mad because he's absolutely absolutely just angry that he's not letting her flub.
She's never been pressed like this before. She's never given an answer and then had anybody else attempt to hold her to task for the answer and allow her a rejoinder from her, which she doesn't have.
Yeah, none whatsoever. None. Let's continue because we only have a few minutes left with this.
And think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things.
There's more to say. I have much more to say.
There are a lot of things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and that's why
I invite everyone to go to kamalaharris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do.
And that's why we invited you here
our economy,
to see where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
and
they're giving me a hard rap.
Well,
here.
I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have you guys heard about what was going on?
I was gonna bring that up, and I'm gonna look for it. Hold on, let me remove this from the stream. I have somebody who said that the video skipped at one point, and they have the big gaffe that she missed, and they're gonna link that in chat, and I want to see that. But I want to pull that up because I know what you're talking about, Joe, and I want to find it. It's his.
Hey, Joe, say it again. I missed what you said.
Here it is. Watch this. This was after the interview played. This was Bret Baier explaining the whole rap aspect of it.
Dana, you've been on the other side. You've been on the rapper as a press secretary interviewing a president. And, you know, I'm talking like 4 people waving their hands like it's got to stop. So, Martha, final. Yeah. I had to dismount there at the end. There's so many things, and maybe she should do.
They were scrambling to get her off the air. This wasn't we need to wrap up. Now, the other thing too that he talks about, and I don't know if this clip had it or not, She arrived late to the interview.
They
arrived late.
30-minute interview.
Yep. They arrived like literally leaving them like 28 to start or whatever it was. And then her people were, like he said, 4 people saying, wrap it up, wrap it up, wrap it up. That is not because she got her message across. That was because the towel needed to be thrown in. Oh, yeah. It was.
We need like a video of like a flaming airplane going down.
And look, I'm going to say this just like I've said this a million times. Don't listen to the polls. Don't believe everything. Look, there's still people voting for her after this disaster, right? So you have to vote. You have to show up. You can't relent. This has to happen, right? Press the gas. As I've been saying on social media, if she loses, it'll make
BZ's got to say the same. BZ's got to say the same.
Well, I have numerous, Joe. To which are you referring?
The monkeys. Noah's Ark.
We get a vote like we're the third monkey trying to get a Noah's Ark, and brother, it's raining.
I've been stealing that a lot lately, bro.
Okay. Good, because Sean just said it, so super.
Well, I was trying to.
I didn't know which one he was referring to. I'm sorry.
I don't care how much you think he's ahead. Don't
let them fool you.
Pushing. Act like he is so far behind, and we need everybody out there.
There is no red wave. There is no red tsunami. Yep. Sean and I discussed the other night, Tuesday night, as a matter of fact, we both agreed that the Democrats are going to tell you one of two things. Don't show up to the polls because you're so far behind, you're being crushed so badly that your puny little vote won't mean a thing. Or the Democrats are being crushed so terribly that you don't want to pile on, do you? No, don't pile on. Your vote is not needed. You've already won.
I will tell you 100% that their internal polling. Now, people don't understand. External polling, there's always a lean. They oversample, undersample, whatever. The internal polls, they have a tendency to try to be as accurate as possible because that is how they plan their campaign. There's not often an oversampling of Democrats for the Democrat internal polling because they don't want to get caught flat-footed. So I'm telling you that if the polls are saying what they're saying today and it's already bad, then the internal polls must be horrific.
Yeah. Behind the scenes, there's some camshaft.
And that's why there's some panicking going on. And look, we've seen how bad they're doing with the black vote. We know.
And that Obama thing did not help. Not
nope.
cut you off, but that
it only pissed him off more. And I'll tell you right now, not only did the Obama thing not help, her throwing these pandering comments out, or policies rather, out, trying to
specifically aimed for blacks. That's going to sell, right? Because who doesn't need more doped up blacks or white or Asians?
And essentially what she is saying is if you look at that whole list, it's like, we're going to give you free money if you vote for us. We somehow will teach you how to bank with Bitcoin. And I don't know what that whole thing was about. But at the end, it's like, oh, and we're going to make sure you guys can all go in the business of legally selling weed. I don't understand, and I could be wrong, but as I said, and I may have said this earlier in the show, but I definitely have said this on X, is I really thought the Democrats would have learned after the Civil War that you can't buy black people anymore. Because now that's all they're trying to do. And I'll tell you what, if you look at the response on social media everywhere, black males specifically in this country are pissed at that proposal. They're not happy. Why? Because they ignored the black male vote. They ignored male vote in general. They're so underwater with males. They know that. Specifically the black male vote, they're even more underwater. They ignored them this entire time. And now that the internal polls say, oh shit, we're bleeding the black male vote, and hemorrhaging is probably a better term. Now all of a sudden, she wants to get them back into the
What's also hurting them with the black Latino, even some of the white, the inner city where they need help, and they're on government assistance. And I'm not saying all blacks, all Hispanics, all white. I'm saying the ones that are in there. And a lot of them have gotten kicked off of that to make room for illegal aliens to get money.
Oh, yeah.
And that's pissed off a lot because they've gone, I've lost my help.
Well, it's even worse.
So these people can get help. That's
Joe, it's
even
worse because one of the other things that's happening is they're not necessarily moving into the low-income housing. They're living in the much nicer hotels and all that stuff and getting free food and all this other stuff. Yep. And people who are in low-income housing are like, wait a minute, how come they're just showing up and they're getting all of this? The other big story that dropped today, and the Kamala interview this dropped today on purpose. And they knew the Kamala interview would absolutely take over the talking point on this.
We pivot to that real quick.
Yep.
The one thing I saw also on Twitter, some of the things that are leaking. Number one, she was in the green room crying after the interview.
What?
Kamala Harris.
Who said that?
I you know how it goes, Sean. You go through so many, and it's and the other
that's
one,
always stuff that I want to attach a name to, so it's not us saying it. You know what I mean?
Like I said, this is stuff that I've come across, and
I don't think she'd be back there crying. I actually, if you told me she went back there and started breaking shit, that would make more sense to me.
Sort of going to the next one. That none of the staff go anywhere near her, say a word to her, because they said she was pissed. But you get like my wife who gets pissed off, and what does she do? She cries.
Yeah, I don't.
Pissed off, the tears start, and it's not that she's like crying because she's upset. She's crying because she's pissed.
Yeah, I don't know if crying would ever be. I don't know if Kamala has enough regular emotion to cry like that. I think that she snaps. And look, I've been saying on social media now for over a month that it's getting closer and closer to the point that she's going to snap in public.
She started to tonight.
She started to tonight.
She was on the cusp.
She really had a hard time. So this is for people of history. I really think this interview is kind of Dukakis's tank moment.
Or maybe the Biden debate moment? Well, no, not quite as bad as that, but getting there.
It was really bad. But the other thing that dropped today that while I have you gentlemen for a few more minutes, I do want to talk about is this story, and I wrote this on SHR Media. People forget that the FBI changed their 2022 crime stats to show that violent crime was up by 4.5%. 4.5%.
Here's what contradicts everybody. That contradicts Democrats, leftists, globalists, everybody in DC, the White House, KJP, the Oval Office, the American media maggots. That contradicts every narrative that they've been pushing this entire year and prior.
And I'm going to go to, I remember a certain moderator fact-checking Trump that crime is down.
That didn't happen.
But here's my shock face that the stats came out and they had to revise them.
Well, and there's a couple stats that I think people should find that's interesting. And I have been in fighting with people, and I said this on my show Friday. Friday, I talked about the Marshall Project. I talked about crime stats and how they were not complete because of the following. This is factual. This is not me saying it. This is from the Marshall Project, who absolutely studied this specifically. Out on the 2022 crime stats, there's a total of 18,896 police agencies that have to report or are supposed to report per NIBRS. Out of those, 44% submitted complete crime stats to the FBI. 44, so we're already under half. 4,464 agencies, that's 24%, submitted less than 12 months of data for 2022. And 32% of agencies, including the NYPD and the LAPD, report zero data to the FBI crime stats. And why is this? In 2021, and this is a direct quote, I will put it up on the screen, from the Marshall Project. In 2021, in an effort to fully modernize the system, the FBI stopped taking data from the old summary system that only accepted data through the new system. Thousands of police agencies fell through the crack because they didn't catch up with the changes of time. Now, I will tell you, the last time the FBI did this, and this was, and if folks don't know what CJIS is, Criminal Justice Information System, and NIBRS, NIBRS, you can Google it. It'll give you a little insight. But essentially, the FBI says, look, we categorize crimes X, Y, and Z, A, B, and C. If you have this crime, it goes here. If you have this crime, it goes there. That's how they sort it. And they try to do it in a way that agencies it meets the state codes, and state codes feed into that. And it's this really pain in the ass system in a way that, because we have 50 states and 50 sets of laws, even if we have the same law state to state, they have different coding, they have different descriptions, et cetera, et cetera. The last time they did this, it was a nightmare. They finally got a lot of people, and I think the last time they did it, and correct me if I'm wrong, was 2004, 2003. And the reason I know they did it somewhere around then is because I was working for an agency that was starting to do a new reporting system, and I was part of the test team. And I remember talking to the developers and them saying it was a nightmare even back then to submit to the FBI and get the two systems to talk to each other. So that is why it is not as simple as just, oh, you just update Windows and the conversation will go. When you have an agency like NYPD or LAPD, the amount of training, effort, resources, money, and materials to make an updated system, B, to have it talk to the FBI, is astronomical. And the FBI changes this fairly regularly, which is odd to me, because why you would put that burden. The FBI is like, oh, we're just changing our system that receives it. But now the burden falls on 18,896 separate agencies to update and fix it.
Are you going to do a summary of the interview, or solicit a summary? I'm just curious.
On the interview itself?
Yes.
Like a write-up?
No. As
like
in
a show summary, each one.
As in Jersey Joe. So in conclusion.
Oh yeah, no, I was going to do that for the whole show. I was, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
I sent that to you, Sean, because I don't know if you want to bring that up. That's being reported by Steve Lochner.
Oh, okay. Houthi News report. Oh, outlet Al Mashariya is reporting the U.S. and UK conducted airstrikes this evening in Yemen. Interesting.
He's pretty good at getting.
No, he follows that really, really well. I'm going to give you. I've been given a task by chat, and I'm trying to find it.
I couldn't find chat. I'm sorry, but that's because I'm a moron.
No, that's okay.
Sean's hiding it from us.
That's what I do. I'm a hider. I looked it up. I can't find it. But if BZ,
sir,
it's open mic right now. You tell me both the interview and the crime stats, because I think that's really important going to this election.
Well, the crime stats, the new information about the crime stats completely refute everything that all of the aforementioned groups and organizations have been bleating about beforehand. We're doing so well. Everything is so wonderful until the stats come up and prove them to be absolute bald-faced naked liars. Mm-hmm. In terms of the interview, I just looked at the New York Times. I have a little bit of a summary. I think she expected to get 2020 Bret Baier, and she didn't get that guy. Baier actually asked questions. He actually kind of sort of pressed her. I was shocked.
I wasn't.
She didn't want to talk about her. She didn't want to talk about Biden. She didn't want to talk about Biden accomplishments, air quotes. She just wanted to talk about Trump. She had anger. She got pissed off. She got angered because of Trump, for Trump. She didn't have any anger for the border. She didn't have any anger for human beings trafficked by her administration. She had no anger for FEMA. She had no anger for the economy. She had no anger for Americans killed by a porous border, because she tanked that all with Biden, concomitant with Biden. She is, as she customarily is. Now, I used to quantify Hillary Clinton as lovable and likable as an Eastern diamondback rattlesnake. And then I said, when I finally got to know who Kamala Harris was, she is as warm and as likable as a Western diamondback rattlesnake. She can't take real initial questions, much less the slightest questioning or of an answer, or pushback in the slightest, or heat of any kind, because she is totally unfamiliar with those concepts.
Yes.
So, but I think here's one of the most important points. Then I want to go into this quick review from the New York Times, because it is so quintessential.
Go ahead.
So, as a Democrat presidential candidate, you don't go on Bret Baier if you're winning. You don't even respond to his inquiries. So that tells me a great deal right there. Now, here's from the Washington Post, or excuse me, the Washington Post, which says that she was treated by Bret Baier, who was doing nothing but pushing Republican talking points. Here are quotes from the New York Times. An aggressive Bret Baier pushed right-wing arguments. From the outset, Bret Baier seemed determined to knock Ms. Harris off her talking points, often by echoing those of Mr. Trump. It took him less than 20 seconds to interrupt her for the first time. Ms. Harris...
She didn't answer the question.
This is actually a wonderful sentence. Ms. Harris, who is known to be an effective practitioner of the filibuster, had hardly even begun to answer his opening question. That pattern continued for much of the interview. Dun, dun, dun! That's my summary.
Well, and that also tells you how soft they all are if they're going to say that was a combative interview. It was not a combative interview. It wasn't. There was nothing combative about that interview. Jersey Joe, you got the floor, my friend.
Well, that's the talking point that's going across Twitter, too, with all the DNC trolls and DNC talking heads. It's antagonistic. She was blindsided. She was, attacked. I love the blindsided. You didn't know you were going on this interview?
You didn't know you were going to get these questions that were softball questions?
This sums up her campaign pretty much from start to finish. The media has carried her from day one of the announcement that she was going to be the candidate, because it's funny, before they didn't like her, she becomes the candidate, they love her. It's a joke and a half almost. It makes me really scared to where this country's going.
Mm-hmm.
What am I leaving my daughter? And it's not good. And I know, no way am I saying that Republicans are 100 the answer. I will never say that, because I do believe I don't want a one-party system. I don't want that. But Democrats,
well, we were warned against one and two party systems, specifically two parties. But
and to go on to the FBI stat, I mean, how many times in this administration have we seen stats put out that show everything in a good light, and then like a month or two, couple months down the road, very quietly it's released that they were wrong and it's not going good. The economy, jobs, crime, all that, we've seen it. I mean, everybody was able to see when they looked at those stats from the FBI, and New York City and LA had 0 murders in a year. Everybody was able to go, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you see it on TV every night.
Yes. Yeah.
A rape in New York. That's
well, yeah.
I'm with you, dude. It was somewhat fun to watching her just almost implode and crumble. It was somewhat entertaining, and I know we shouldn't take such joy in watching something like that, but when I see people like that, yeah, they deserve it. Karma's coming back and biting them in the ass.
Yeah, I look, I understand what you're saying. I don't take joy in other people's misery in life. I really don't. However, that being said, you hit the karma nail right on the freaking karma head. Unfortunately, this situation was developed and she was a part of it, and she led to her own demise in this interview. I will tell you that, and I said this earlier, I really think that this pivots the entire, just to use her term, just pivots her entire campaign, because she looked weak, she looked feckless, she looked scared, and then when she was slightly pressed, she went right to anger, pointing the finger wagging him, doing the whole essentially, how dare you talk to me like that, which is essentially what she was doing. And you counter that with the almost 2-hour interview that Trump did yesterday in Chicago. That was a combative interview as well, where he but he never got mad. He never got loud. He was direct. He was type A, I guess is a good way of putting it. Like, he didn't kowtow and he didn't bend, but he wasn't loud and he wasn't screaming, right? He called, I forget the guy's name, but he called him out like 3 different times.
That was the guy from Bloomberg.
Yeah.
I forget that guy's name either.
Yeah, I can't either. But the simple fact of the matter is,
numerous
points. But the reality is you have a comparison now of what happens when somebody, and look, Trump has been in combative interviews 100 times. Almost every interview he does is combative, even some on Fox. Yeah. Right? So you can't turn around and say he's never done this. He's done 2 debates to her, 1, right? And both of the debates were in unfriendly locations. They weren't on Fox. They weren't on Right Side. They weren't on Newsmax. They were in places that were not Trump friendly. He, as we know, got lit up by the debate moderators in the last debate with Harris, with the muting and the overcorrecting and the correcting in time, but letting her just drone on and on and on and on. And people who watch that, the vast majority of people don't think that she won that debate per se. They think that he was forced to lose it, if that makes sense, by the moderator's actions.
You made an articulate point up front, Sackhead Sean, that I'd like to revisit. And that is, you said she had roughly a week to prepare for this. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to make a contrast so that everybody can see this particular instance. In the debate, look at all of her extemporaneous, allegedly off-the-cuff statements and interviews and whatnot. The other thing that I really liked, and I'll get to my point in a moment, this just popped into my Mark 1 Model 1 brainulus.
That's all right. We're already 50 minutes past an hour, an hour show anyhow. An hour and 50 minutes into a 1-hour show.
That wasn't going to happen. That's like, I'll always get to all of my topics.
I tried.
But you showed on Tuesday night's show, and I don't know if you have it still, as she's speaking in some kind of an allegedly extemporaneous town hall meeting. Even in that, she had a teleprompter on a podium, which was caught by a photograph, and a teleprompter on the floor. I'd never seen that before, and I remarked upon that. And so look at the way she conducted herself during the debate, and look at the way she has conducted herself historically, extemporaneously, or allegedly so, including this interview, and she performs poorly.
Yes.
Consistently. So what was the difference? You cannot tell me that her good sorority sister friend didn't somehow, through any number of cutouts, make some kind of a reference to these are the things we're going to be talking about.
They don't
These
need to.
are things to which you might want to repair or prepare, rather, because these are two entirely, completely separate Kamala Harris units coming up in front, and she does poorly on the fly, off the cuff. That doesn't happen.
But here's the difference. I don't necessarily think that she needs to get the questions or they need to get her a question. They already know what the topics are, right? Because they're the same topics that have been in the campaign for over a year now, right? We know what the topics are. It's going to be the border. It's going to be abortion. It's going to be the economy. It's going to be the women in sports issue. It's going to be this, going to be that. They know the same 8 or 9. So all she needs to do is have pre-loaded responses for those topics, which is what she has. Waltz had them the night JD Vance and he had his debate, because you could see him freaking out when he wasn't able to get them all out. So she doesn't need the answers up front or the questions up front. She already knows what they're going to be. So she just needs time, deflection, and space to be able to vomit out her entire answer. As you saw today, when she was not able to do so, she got flustered quickly. She's done a whole bunch of media blitzes for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, but they've all been in safe spaces. The View, the Sex Podcast, Roland Martin. None of these people pushed her. He pushed her. He actually pushed her.
He exposed something.
Hold on. He didn't push her in a bad way. He wasn't rude, he wasn't mean. All he really did was what most interviewers should do is, that's great, but I need you to answer this question. And she didn't. She didn't answer one question specifically asked. She talked a lot and didn't say anything. She talked about how I'm not Joe Biden. She talked this, she talked that. She danced around everything but to give a direct answer. She said what she's not going to do over and over.
Bret exposed one thing about her. And I'm going to take like a pundit hat off and put on my old EMS hat. And what I see is, when I see Trump and he's in enemy territory, he stays calm. He stays cool. He stays collected. He returns fire, but he's very calm about it. A little bit of pressure on her, and she folded tonight. She lost it.
Yep. 100%.
I know she didn't scream, yelled, but she lost it. She couldn't handle it.
She almost did.
So how is she going to take it going up against Putin, the Chinese president? How is she going to go up against our enemies?
Yep.
And they're not going to take her lightly. They're going to push her. They're going to attack her. Is she going to crumble? That shows her leadership. And that showed two leaderships and what we want as a country.
Yeah, no, and Dub agrees with you in chat room, and he said that about Putin already, and you mentioned Xi as well. No, I don't think, and more importantly, this is how she reacts under pressure. She was under pressure and she reacted poorly. We all saw that. It's not a shock. Here's what's more to think about beyond how is she going to speak with these people who are going to try to intimidate her. What will happen if there is a national incident, if there's another large terroristic incident, if there is a massive war, if there is a massive power outage nationwide, whatever you pick, how will she respond under the pressure of that?
Middle class upbringing.
If she cannot respond to Bret Baier keeping her on task, that comes down to it, because that's the president's first job. Remember Hillary, who answers the phone at 3 a.m.? Remember that whole commercial? Right? Who do you want answering the phone at 3 a.m.? This goes beyond just negotiating. We know she's not going to negotiate well. And we know that Trump's a better negotiator with these other people. He's not afraid of them. Yada. Who's going to answer the phone at 3 a.m.? Do you want the person who cannot handle a little pushback. And that's what it was. And everybody had to run to her defense to be the person to pick up that phone and start directing traffic. That's what bothers me more.
Yeah.
And people forget about that. And Dub said in the chat room, she'll be the one who has the nuclear codes, right? These are all things you got to think of. They can say whatever they want about Trump, but he didn't do any of it in the first 4 years. He showed he had the opportunity to be bonkers, as it was said in the chat room. He had the opportunity to be horrific. He had the opportunity to try to stage an actual coup, which he didn't do. He had an opportunity to do all the things they keep saying he's going to do, but he hasn't done it yet.
Yep.
And that's why
he had the motive, means, and opportunity to do exactly what they're accusing him of, and didn't.
Did not do any of that. Did not do any of that. As a matter of fact, as we saw on January 6th, we saw the DOD files. He warned everybody it was going to be a big rally to bring in extra people, and they all laughed at him. He warned them, hey, this is going to happen. Pelosi turned down the extra help. AOC today, I think, or yesterday, was talking about how she was almost sexually assaulted on January 6th. This tells you how crazy they are with January 6th. She said she could have been sexually assaulted. She wasn't even there.
Yeah. No, she was not in the building.
Right. But they still just throw out these BS and these lies nonstop.
Because the retractions don't get the headlines that the crazy shit does.
But that's why when they're talking about being unhinged, when they're talking about how he's unstable, Joe said this earlier, they are talking about themselves. They know they're unhinged. They know they're unstable. They know they don't have a plan. They know they would use the military against us if they could. How do we know that? Because there was a DOD directive released this week that essentially oversteps posse comitatus.
God bless you.
Thank you. So we know all of the things that they would do because they're accusing him of it, and then they're doing it themselves. The other thing that they absolutely have not grasped yet, maybe they do know, maybe they know they can lie bold-faced and the media will cover for them and their base is going to believe them no matter what. I had people today, the same people that I was arguing with about, throwing all that policy for all that extra stuff for black males. They said, oh, what, like he didn't just offer Border Patrol $10,000 sign-on bonus and retention bonus. And I said, sign-on and retention bonus is, first of all, that's work being done. That is an academy they've gone through. That is putting their life on the line. But law enforcement, you still can't get cops. It's like that nationwide. They're having a hard time getting cops. They all have a hiring retention bonus. And when I pointed that out, it turned out the argument just fell into orange man bad.
Yeah.
Right. They didn't want to have the legitimate conversation. Same thing about the crime stats. When I said it Friday, when I was having these arguments, I said, look, this is why it's not complete. It's going to get changed at some point. Nope. You're wrong. You're wrong. I had a guy claim to be a cop for 40 years in New York telling me why I was wrong, how I was wrong, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I posted my article to them today, and none of them except one responded. And the one who responded said, well, you're still wrong. This is what we're dealing with. And this is 48% of the country. And we need to understand that moving forward. And it's scary. I'm
all for it, but I wonder if we can ever get back as a country as a whole. I don't know if we can. There is such a split in this country. I
don't know. We shall find out.
I'm not calling for it, so I don't want to.
Top of the hour. We're getting to the top of the hour. We're getting out of here. Closing thoughts.
One final thing. Did you guys see the poll from September 18th from Rasmussen? I'll just read the headline. Addressing you, Jersey Joe. Poll shocker. 28% of Democrats think America would be better off if Trump had been assassinated.
Oh, yeah.
That's where we are.
Yep. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We're going to start at the bottom. Jersey Joe, tell everybody where they can find you.
In my house. Now on Of course, with shrmedia.com. You can go to Twitter at Jersey Joe Talks 2, I think it is. But if you just look up Revert Common Sense, the only one I think now, there's a couple copycats out there, but never like the original.
Not going for third hour here tonight, Joe. Supposed to be an.
Well, number one, thanks for inviting me. Number two, my show tomorrow, Thursday night, is going to have Ralph J. Chittims Sr. and Lonnie Poindexter on, both who happen to be Black Americans, because naming someone's race is really important to leftists. But we're going to discuss why it is that, for example, American black males are leaving and some black females, and I have video to prove these points, are leaving the Democrats. Why? Why are they doing that? On BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct on the SHR Media Network, shrmedia.com, at BZ's Saloon on Twitter, and also on rumble.com, Berserk Bobcat Saloon. It is at 8 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern, where the drinks are free, but the speech is free too. Wait a minute, you told me that backwards, anyway, you know where to go. BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. How come you're not laughing at me right now? Something odd is going on. Are you there? What happened to the real Sean?
No,
what happened to Sean?
I was sitting there trying to process the fact that you screwed up your own intro that you've been saying now for 12 years or something like that?
17,523 years. How come you weren't laughing? That's unlike you. Put Sean back on the camera. I want the real Sean right now.
This is just mind-boggling to me. BZ, sir, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me, sir.
My pleasure. And for me, you can find me on Twitter, the number 2 Against Tyranny, or Sackhead Sean. You can just look me up and you'll find my bald head in my new photo. Also, you can find us shrmedia.com. I put articles up on the daily there at shrmedia.com that we do write in-house. If you or someone you know wants to contribute to SHR Media, you can email me, Sean, SHAUN, at shrmedia.com. We are looking for quality broadcasters and writers. So if there's anybody you know, or if maybe it's you, go ahead and shoot me an email. We'd love to talk to you and see if it's something that maybe we can work out. I will be back Friday at noon right here on X, Rumble, YouTube, Twitch. There's something I'm missing. Facebook. And, of course, right here on shrmedia.com. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This was an SHR Media Reacts. We were talking about Kamala Harris and her interview with Bret Baier. We will see you soon. Thank you.
Conservative media done right. Conservative media done right.